his recollection that we had capped it. I think we all recall that. I know a couple of us, and it wasn't me necessarily, but somebody raised the red flag as the year unfolded and we were getting the positive media announcements about other grants being approved, and somebody said, how much was in the budget? And I do remember, and I'll accept some responsibility as well. I remember saying in front of this council at one point, my recollection is that we set a budget of 100,000. But quite honestly, after all of that, I went back and I looked at our 2016 budget meeting notes, and I looked at the times when this program was actually talked about at a council meeting. I could not find any specific direction from council capping it at 100,000 or at 50 or at anything last year, and I think that's where the problem was. So,
Mr. Clerk, you want to read the motion on the floor for me, please?
That the community improvement plan.
We need your mic, and I'm sorry. You're on.
That the community improvement plan budget be capped at $94,500.
Councillor, to the motion, Councillor Black.
Thank you, Mayor Luke. This is something that I promoted for a long time, and it was initiated as a downtown incentive plan, and there was a budget for it at that time. I just want to say, I was fully aware that there was no budget for this. I had discussed this with staff, understood, and their explanation today is the explanation they gave me at the time is it was hard to determine how this was going to unroll. And I was willing to see how it did, and at the end of the year, we would probably have a number. And I was willing to go along with that. So there's nothing being pulled over my eyes. I was completely aware of what staff was doing and knew that at budget time we would have a number. So I guess I know it was Councillor Wells who brought it up, and I did have a discussion with Councillor Wells about that. And anyway, it's no news to me. So thank you.
So I would ask those in favor of the motion that this be capped at 94,500. Those in favor? Okay, we're going to move on. Any other questions on 4-69? I'm going to Heritage and Culture now, and again, anything comes to your mind, we're certainly at the end of the session. It can be revisited at any time at that time. So on page 471 and 470, through to 471, some explanations of budget drivers, etc. You know what's there. 472, 473. Good morning, Melissa.
Good morning.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Mr. Baird, anything on this before we ask questions from you and Melissa, or do you want us to get right to questions?
I think we can go right to questions, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. That's good. Councillor Sonnenberg, we'll start with you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On 471, under budget drivers, new budget initiatives for Linwood Landscape Project, Artscape for an increase of $10,700. Could you describe what that's going to entail? What improvements are we making there?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Sonnenberg, that's an initiative that was brought forward by the Linwood Arts Center Board of Management. You may recall that earlier this year, two of their representatives came to council and made a presentation looking for a letter of support for an application that they were making to Ontario 150 grant program. And this is part of that, artscape landscape project at the Norfolk Arts Center.
But what specifically is going to be done? Are we doing stonework, flower beds, facade improvement? What are we doing?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Sonnenberg, I believe that most of it is going towards, there's a gravel path through the property now, and that will be paved, and a bit of signage.
Councillor Black.
Just on that one, I know, I think yourself, I think Councillor Oliver, I'm not sure if there's another councillor and then Councillor Brunton attended a presentation over at Linwood in regards to this plan. And I believe there's money, fundraising money coming towards this as well. And it is to look at the whole property and develop it into usable spaces and landscaping and connectivity with trails, utilizing some of the backspace for outdoor programming, maybe even utilizing the gazebo that's down a little bit further, cutting some of those giant cottonwoods that, if they fall, could probably take out the Phoenix Club. And maybe that wouldn't be a bad idea. Anyway, it's a fairly elaborate plan that's being supported, and I'm not sure if the councillors know, Linwood or Norfolk Arts, former Linwood, had their own board. That kind of evolved into a private group that supports Linwood, and that group is supporting this activity there. So I don't know if I've, maybe through you to Melissa, whether I've encapsulated that correctly or not.
You pretty much nailed it.
Councillor Height and then Councillor Brunton, please.
Thank you, Mayor Luke. On page 4-72, under maintenance and repairs services, you had a budget of 30K, or well, you had a budget of 38,000 and you spent 30 of it. But this time around, you're looking for 75,000. But on the previous page, 4-71, it states that maintenance and repair services shows a decrease due to a one-time cost of interior repairs and painting of old HR area in Norfolk Arts Center in the amount of $20,000.
You asked my question verbatim, the only question I have. Thank
Bit
you.
confusing, Mr. Mayor.
Repairs and maintenance, Mr. Baird, quite an increase
I'd be
here.
glad to help answer that question.
Thank you.
The work that was done, that Councillor Height has just referred to, was last year in the former HR areas. That was the floor refinishing and repainting. What's being requested for this year are two projects, one of which I'm going to suggest to Council we can defer. But essentially the two are at the Port Dover Harbour Museum. The first one in the amount of $50,000 is the wheelhouse, which is the on the back side of the museum, the lake freighter. The project calls for lead abatement, sandblasting and repainting. It's in very poor condition and it leaks every time we get a heavy rain. So working with Marlene Watson's group, we've put this in the budget for this year as a priority. The second one, which we're going to suggest can be deferred, also at the Port Dover Museum, is power washing and the application of a sealant on the dock area. That's in the amount of $6,200, and perhaps if council may want to consider that as a cut right now, that would certainly be appropriate.
It was 50,000 for the wheelhouse and 6,200 for the dock restoration. Yes, you may, Mr. County Manager. Then I'm going to Councillor Height. Councillor Brunton, that answers your question? Yeah, I thought you were finished.
good?
I just wanted to, yeah, and I'll get to you just a second. Councillor Height, while I wait for the county manager,
certainly.
he's getting some information. Go ahead.
Through you to Mr. Baird. Mr. Mayor, under maintenance and repairs, okay, so, and I'm not singling this out, it's just, I want to know how it works as a corporation here. You had a budget of $38,000 for repairs, and you didn't spend 8 of it. And you know the old saying, if you don't spend it, you lose it. But I'm just wondering, like, with the repairs, like, why wasn't it done to that amount for the budget? And I appreciate the savings, but then what I feel can happen is we're not maintaining our properties, kind of like washrooms quit working in certain facilities and whatnot.
Through the Mayor, Councillor Height, we didn't spend the money. I mean, when we put together estimates, we work with Ms. Watson's group. She looks after all the building envelope and those repairs. And so these are best estimates that we put forward. when they're actually tendered out, we may get economies of scale, putting all the roof repair work together and so on. It's all apportioned out. So it did come in significantly under budget last year. But we look at each year, year over year, and what's being proposed for 2017 of the two projects I just mentioned. And then there's $1,000 for the Quants Mill, which is just down behind the Delheim Museum. That is the full extent of the maintenance and repairs for buildings. Other than that, we're in pretty good shape for those sites. So that's all that's being asked for this year.
Okay, so just because you just tipped me off to something, the Quants Mill, is that the one where there's an NBI initiative for a person who will keep it open? That's later on in the pages, I saw it. Down, Melissa likely knows about that. A student?
No, the only NBIs that we're proposing.
It was a failed one. It was pulled from SLT.
It was, yeah, correct. Yeah, we felt that wasn't appropriate for this year.
But you're doing the repairs on that same facility, is that?
Yeah, the repairs for the facility, I could just let you know it. There's been some vandalism to the doors and the access, so it's basically just trying to ensure that people can't get into it that shouldn't be in there.
Right, now, I'm getting somewhere with this, so hang on. With that other NBI, the one that was pulled, I like that idea that the Quants Mill is open. And what was the cost of that?
Generally, a student is about, let's say, $5,000 for the summer. That would be, it's a little bit different if it's a high school student versus a secondary, post-secondary, just because a summer student from a high school generally works July and August, where a post-secondary student would work June, July, August, because they finish earlier.
So if we could pull that $6,200 that you mentioned previously and bring that other one back, there would be a minimal, like the cut would be around $1,200?
It would be a wash, I would suggest. We felt, again, it was a great idea. We'd like to do that. We really want to do more at the Quants Mill. And in order to do that, we need a summer resource. So we felt, let's get the building in order. Let's see where we're going and perhaps bring it back in another year. But we are very sensitive to making requests of council for additional staff, be they students or otherwise. Mm-hmm. But I certainly appreciate the thought that you shared with us.
Okay, I'll move the motion to cut that $6,200 that you offered up.
Okay, just if you allow me, Councillor Brunton, I'll go to you next. Mr. Baird, the county manager tells me the $50,000 for the wheelhouse at the Port Dover Harbor Museum is coming out of reserves, not levy, and it's reflected at the bottom there into the recoverable charges, Mr. County Manager, just so that we know whether it has an effect on the levy.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. I believe Kathy has given me the nod, but when we discussed that at SLT, there was no question it had to be in the operating budget, but because it was a significant $50,000 one-time item, suggested it shouldn't really bump the levy, that it should be pulled from the general building reserve. So, Kathy, can you confirm that the net financing includes $50,000 transfer from the reserve to offset that bump in the expenditure?
That's correct.
And my follow-up question is then, if in fact removing or delaying the wheelhouse doesn't have any effect, and I recognize reserves, it came from somewhere, we know where it came from, but the dock, if we were to defer that for a year, 6,200, that is levy. Thank you. Now, thank you, Councillor Brunton, you're up. Apologize for...
No problem. Thank you. Going back to that $10,000, sorry.
Oh, boy, oh boy, oh boy. My apologies. I get so wrapped up here. I apologize.
it's
I'm
only
going to go back to you,
6,200,
Councillor
Mr.
Brunton. I'll
Mayor.
get you to shut your microphone off for a second. Okay, go ahead, and my apologies.
It's only $6,200, the offerings from Mr. Baird to cut that project out, the Port Dover Harbor Museum ceiling cleaning, I'm not even sure.
Oh, you're making that a motion?
I did.
Oh, I wasn't snoring. You didn't hear me snoring or anything? I didn't realize you made that a motion. My apologies. Okay, so we're going to speak to the 6,200 first. Anybody wish to discuss that motion to remove it from this year's budget? Those in favor? That's carried. Councillor Brunton, this time for sure, you're up.
Thank you. Going back to the 10,000 at Linwood, Chris or Melissa, you said there was a 150 grant also applied for there, and my recollection is, and maybe I'm wrong, we didn't get a grant. Didn't they turn us down? Somebody answer that?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Brunton, the Linwood Arts Centre Board of Management made that application to the Ontario 150 Fund, and they were unsuccessful.
So is the 10,000 and change still applicable? Can we do something with that? The idea behind it will just pave the gravel walkway?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Brunton, that's correct. It would also cover some lighting and signage.
Okay, and what about the other repairs that are necessary, like the out front, the walk pillars and all that? Is that in the works someplace? I mean, they are a mess. I would even think they're dangerous.
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Brunton, yes, that's still in the works. We're waiting upon Parks Canada for the signed agreement before we begin work.
Thank you. And Your Worship, I have one other issue here. If you go to advertising and promotions again, the line item in our budget shows in 2016 a budget of 47. They spent 37 on advertising and promotion, and they're asking for 47 again. And I'm wondering if we could hold the line on advertising and promotion, and I assume that's for all the facilities. If we could, unless there's some exceptional thing we're going to promote this year, is there anything unusual in there, Melissa? The reason I say that, I would see a $10,000 savings right there.
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Brunton, some of that is for the Canada 150 initiatives that we're doing this year. That would be most of the increase.
But we don't know if we're going to even receive that, or...
I'm sorry?
Like, you've applied for 150, but we may or may not get that, correct?
No, it's not a grant application. What it is we're celebrating Canada 150 this year. Norfolk County has a volunteer committee that's been working on that, so we have a number of events and initiatives that are planned throughout the year.
And you have an extra budget of what, $10,000 you figure you'll need for that?
Well, if you're looking for savings, I'm willing to negotiate that. How often do you hear
Now we're warming
that?
up to you, Melissa.
Make me an offer.
It doesn't take much to warm up to you.
Mr. Mayor, the figure that's being sought for 2017 is the same amount that was approved last year, 47,600. I think Councillor Brunton is referring to the forecasted year end, which was down, well, yeah,
$10,000.
plus or minus $10,000.
Right.
So perhaps there was just less requirement for advertising and promotional last year, but certainly Ms. Culver is suggesting that the same amount budgeted last year would be appropriate for this year.
Mr. Brunton?
Well, she said she'd make me an offer.
Well, I will then, if that's a question to staff, I'll say, Melissa, do you wish to offer
Well,
up any reduction?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Brunton, I'll split the difference and we'll go 5. That's my
So she says
offer.
she can live with 5,000 reduction.
How about 750?
She did say 5. It's really now on your table right now what you want to do.
I'll recommend we cut 5 from that particular
You want to
budget.
make that a motion?
Yes, I will.
Now, this one I did hear. Speaking to the motion of reducing that line item by $5,000. Discussion? Those in favor? Any other ideas, Melissa? I didn't think so. Councillor Oliver, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to go back to the Artscape allocation, which is 10,700. And I heard Melissa's explanation of what would be done. I heard Councillor Black, and I recalled exactly what he said from the overall larger landscaping plan for the exterior of the site. And I thought there had been a successful application made for that overall project. And now I'm confused. Is this $10,700 part of a larger overall landscaping initiative that Norfolk Arts Centre had hoped to do? Both around the Star de Meyer Memorial, and there was an amphitheater to be built back at the back facing the river, and there was some reinforcement work, as I recall, on the wall at the street, as well as the pathway that you've described, Melissa. So my question is, again, is the 10,000 just our share that we still think we have money for of the larger capital project in the exterior of that site?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Oliver, that's correct.
Okay, I'm glad you said that, but I'm disappointed, Mr. Mayor, because to me, it doesn't make sense to proceed with only a portion of the work. It was a very good project. I'm really surprised they were unsuccessful getting funding. And I'm inclined, Mr. Mayor, to suggest that we defer that $10,700, assuming it's levy, on the assumption that Norfolk Arts Centre will reapply again for funding. Sooner or later, our funding sources are going to say, yes, that's a good project. We'll put our money with yours. If we just spend our $10,000, it's not going to accomplish very much of the original project, which I recall was in the range of $40,000 or $50,000 in total. So I will put forward that as a motion. She may wish to comment on it. And my motion, Mr. Mayor, assumes that is levy dollars that's going towards that.
You wish to comment, Melissa?
I would say that the Linwood Arts Centre,
No, that's
Mr.
fine.
Mayor, through you to Councillor Oliver, does intend to reapply. The next intake with the Ontario Trillium Foundation is November, and they do intend to reapply. And I believe that the actual cost of the project is in the $150,000 range.
Councillor Oliver, you did make that a motion. In other words, what you're saying is we can wait till next year to allot this, and so your motion does stand to remove this till next year of $10,700. I see Councillor Sonnenberg and then Black.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to support this motion. I would like to see this whole project undertaken when we get the whole amount. And what's proposed here with this $10,700 is pretty much cosmetic, you know, paving a gravel driveway and some signage and some lighting. There's no health and safety issues here. It's merely cosmetic, in my opinion, so I think we can defer this until it's part of the overall project. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Black.
I won't support it. I think the group will lose some momentum. And if we take this away, I think I've met with them different times and spoken to one of the members, Brenda Lee, and Engelhardt, and Hazel. And they want to at least, try to accomplish something there. They do have an overall plan, and they've picked out some elements of that plan that they could go forward with, and that's where this figure comes from. And they are things that would be required even if they didn't go ahead with the grant. Some of the grant items are much larger, but paving the pathway allows for accessibility. It addresses the accessibility issues and trail connectivity issues, so it kind of gets that one done and out of the way. So I can't support the deferral. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the motion? If not, those in favor? Those opposed? And that is carried. Any other questions on culture and heritage? Or should I say heritage and culture? Anything else here? Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The one other line item that caught my attention, although it's a very small item, is seminars and training. Budgeted at $10,000, came in slightly under budget at $9,500, and yet is proposed for a 35% increase going up to $13,500. Mr. Mayor, I'll put a motion on the table that we leave that budget at the 2016 level, which would be a reduction of $3,500.
That's for seminars and training.
Correct?
Motion to leave it where it was, in other words, a reduction of 3,500. To that motion, and certainly staff wishes to add anything, I will recognize them, but we'll go to Councillor Columbus to the motion.
Yes, I'd like to ask Melissa what impact that has on her programming, if any.
Melissa?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Columbus, it'll have significant impact. Our training and development budget in heritage and culture is very lean to begin with, and some of our sites, I know Delhi in particular, has put in an increase. Their current training and development budget is $500 a year. That doesn't even pay for one staff person to attend the Ontario Museum Association's annual conference. And in my work with, especially with the Norfolk Heritage Committee, the National Heritage Trust Conference, I attended this past year and was very helpful in my work, and I'm putting that forward for 2017. We get a lot of value, I think, for very little money.
Anything further? Councillor Sonnenberg?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This has nothing to do with dollars and cents, but there's a line here that says, challenges declining volunteer base. Maybe someday it will have to do with dollars and cents. Someone has said that if it wasn't for volunteers, we couldn't afford the projects that we undertake. I see this everywhere. I see this in service clubs, I see this in church, I see this in all kinds of committees and boards. The volunteers are not replacing the older people. The older people have been there for decades, and they're just burned out, and there's no people stepping up, and that, to me, is a big concern. So, like I said, it's not a budget issue, but it's going to be a concern someday, I think, when it comes. We might have to pay people to do everything, eventually, if the volunteers don't step up. Thank you.
Was that in relation to the motion, your comments? I shouldn't, we're going to strike that from the record. I thought it was going somewhere. We're going to forget about your comments, but thank you for wasting our time. I'm kidding. Don't be upset. Okay, back to the motion. Councillor Oliver? No? Okay, motion is to reduce by 3,500 to leave it at last year's numbers. Any further discussion? If not, those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. Those opposed? 1, 2, 3, and I will oppose it. Therefore, the motion is defeated. Anything else on 4-72? I am now going to do one more section. It's a short one, and then we will break. That should be some incentive to get right to it. On page 4-75, this is the unallocated summary, which is basically just a budget where we don't put charges to any specific department. It's sort of a catch-all. We have had discussion on this earlier, but Councillor Columbus, we'll start with you.
No, I wanted to go back to the previous division and ask a question. Overall, with respect to accommodation space for this division, Development and Cultural Services, to Chris, are we out of staff accommodation space at RAB? And how are we handling that if we are?
Through Mr. Mayor, I can certainly, when we refer to RAB, there's 3 floors, of course, so I can only speak to the second floor. We have sufficient space now into the foreseeable future. 1/3, or perhaps less than 1/3 of my team are in Langton, so we do have that space, but there's no way, if we were to come together in one location, that wouldn't work. But we've got a few growth areas we can put people in. It means, smaller workstations and so on. I think our big challenge is going to be, and again, it's related to growth, is the big file systems that we have that occupy the center core of our office. Each property file for the west half of Norfolk, we've got about 45,000 records there, and we're adding 300-400 every year. So we need to think about that. I think it's not about adding more space. There may come a time when we need to look, as the libraries are and other our records retention, looking at scanning that information. That's another undertaking there. But we're fine for now. We'll make do.
Anything further on this page? Councillor Height?
Were you talking about the heritage or the unallocated?
Well, I've allowed him to go back, so if you wish to go back, absolutely.
No, I'm done with that one.
I'm on page 4-75.
Me too.
Fire away.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And through you to the treasurer, it's the salaries and benefits, I believe that was a staff gapping figure. Is that how that got in there? And how is that number based? Do you have reports that management gives you on the number of staff or the displaced or misplaced staff? Like the open positions?
It's not very scientific, Mr. Mayor. We don't have a formula spreadsheet or something else that we use. It's a number that I think 4 or 5 years ago we did do some analysis of it, and you know it's a number that just it's very difficult to pin down because of the different positions that would be vacant, the different period of time they'd be vacant. So it's a let's just say that it's a guess. It's an educated guess.
Okay, so if a position was to go vacant 6 months, how is that addressed ever? Or does it just keep rolling forward and doesn't get filled?
And it doesn't get filled? Well, at some point in time it would get filled.
But if you couldn't find somebody qualified, if you're looking for a grumple grommet maker and there just aren't that many in Norfolk County, how would you...
Well, there's a couple of things that happen. If we can't find a person with that particular skill set, and it happens, then we'll re-advertise, or we'll advertise it in a broader area or in a different area or something like that. We also could hire somebody on a temporary basis to fill in that gap for 6 months while the other person's gone, or reallocate some of the tasks amongst other staff and hire somebody to fill in their gap, which is, I said the other day, that's what we did in financial services. We had a very technical person off for a year, and we couldn't find somebody to replace that person easily. So we reorganized some of the work of other staff to free up somebody who could work on some of that, and then hired somebody to fill in those gaps for the other staff. So there's a bunch of different ways that you can deal with that. I don't know whether that fully answers your question, but that's kind of the way that we've dealt with it.
Okay, and so then do we have a policy in place when if somebody leaves that it takes X amount of weeks moving forward to replenish that position? Is there a set time? Like, for example, I'll give you an example. Our county manager is moving on. It's going to take us 3 months. Okay, 3 months at that salary rate is a gap. So technically right now we could cut the county manager's budget for this year by that much because it's not there. But do we have a policy that says, do not hire somebody in a position for 6 weeks or 8 weeks?
Do you want to answer that, please?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I actually have to say that no, there isn't really a policy like that, and in many respects, Candy will have to back me up here, but very clearly, actually, in collective agreements, we have timeframes in which we normally have to post positions after they become vacant, or that we generally post, certainly, some sort of arbitrary policy of like forced gapping, may save those salary dollars, but if it's in an area, again, if you look across the many lines of business the municipality's in, if, for example, you had an arbitrary policy that says leave this building, a vacant building inspector position vacant for 8 weeks or 6 weeks, if it's during the prime construction season, then if you can get enough overtime hours to keep up with the demand, you may end up paying more than what you've saved by having to pay people to make up that work at overtime rates. So, in many cases, it's to our advantage actually to reduce that gapping period and replace staff that resign and move on to other municipalities, just to make sure that the work is kept up with.
Okay. Brunton?
Thank you, Mayor Lou. My question through you to John is, in this section here, this is where we increase the debt based on debenturing from previous years. Is that correct or no? Okay, we add a percentage to the budget every year because of what we debentured.
Oh, okay, I understand the question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
interest on
When,
debenture.
when we put the budget together, we know what debt's going, we'll have a good idea what debt's going to be issued and approximately what the debt service costs are going to be. And so we adjust each departmental budget for the amount of that debt service cost.
That's
So-
what I mean, is it all in here?
No,
What?
it's not in here, none of it's in here.
Oh, none of it, okay.
It's
Okay, the financial is the reserve, sorry to interrupt. Sorry? John, the financial line of 185, what is that? I think that might be related to the question.
Which line is that?
The financial one, right there at the top under expenditures, 185,000 over last year, financial.
Okay.
Just a second, Doug, and we'll just, Mr. Broughton.
What that budget is, Mr. Merritt, is write-offs of taxes, write-offs of vacant unit rebates, and all of those things are in
Okay.
that account.
Thank you, I just want to know what that was. Go ahead, Mr. Broughton, continue.
Well, can you tell me the increase, the way I'm reading it, in the net levy is 371,000. Can you tell me how that's derived?
Well, the revenues are down 176, and the expenditures are up to 12. That's where I believe the 371 roughly comes from. And then there's another factor in there, but I think your question is, how do you get to those figures?
Yeah.
Correct, somewhere around there. Go ahead. So under budget drivers for 4-74, it does explain the 167 anyhow. Mr. Ford, do you wish to comment on that? Why, Mr. Brunton is asking, why is it up over
Yes.
last year, 371,000, which is 4.1%?
It has to do with, if you look at investment income, we talked about this the other day, our investment income is down because our cash flow's down. And there's a couple of charges in there at the top for consulting services and a small increase in contract services. That's for our credit rating analysis. The consulting services, that's an estimate of the legal fees for a tax litigation matter.
Pending?
Pardon me?
Gotcha.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further on this page? What we're going to do then is break for 15, and then we'll come back and get at community services. Sorry, yes.
Excuse me, yesterday council asked for some things. We've got them. I'll circulate them and put them on the desk, and maybe we could talk about them when we come back.
We
after
have
the
what? I
break.
didn't catch the first part.
I'm sorry. Yesterday council asked for a couple of items. We've got them now.
Oh, okay.
We'll circulate them. We can talk about them when we start. Thank you.
Called Norfolk. It's Ontario's south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with a friend stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my Southern County home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. With hard work, we built a dream that only willing hands could do. It's on display at our fall fairs and at all the festivals too. Erie beaches, Carolinian forests, where the flower and dogwoods bloom. Patchwork fields and rolling hills, it's just the place for you. Norfolk, Norfolk, the Southern County home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Norfolk, 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 you won't be a stranger long. On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario's south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a Southern County home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my Southern County home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. With hard work, we built a dream that only willing hands could do. It's on display at our fall fairs and at all the festivals too. Erie beaches, Carolinian forests, where the flower and dogwoods bloom. Patchwork fields and rolling hills, it's just the place for you. Norfolk, Norfolk, the Southern County home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Norfolk, Norfolk, a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario, south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Up north, on a strip of sandy soil, lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario, south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. With hard work, we built a dream that only willing hands could do. It's on display at our fall fairs and at all the festivals too. Erie beaches, Carolinian forests, where the flower and dogwoods bloom. Patchwork fields and rolling hills, it's just the place for you. Norfolk, Norfolk, the southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Norfolk, 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 you won't be a stranger long. On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario, south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my Southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. With hard work, we built a dream that only willing hands could do. It's on display at our fall fairs and at all the festivals too. Erie beaches, Carolinian forests, where the flower and dogwoods bloom. Patchwork fields and rolling hills, it's just a place for you. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Norfolk, 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 you won't be a stranger long. On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario's south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of North, on a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario's south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger long. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my Southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong With hard work, we built a dream that only willing hands could do. It's on display at our fall fairs and at all the festivals too. Erie beaches, Carolinian forests, where the flower and dogwoods bloom. Patchwork fields and rolling hills, it's just the place for you. Norfolk, Norfolk, the southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger along. Norfolk, 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 you won't be a stranger along. On a strip of sandy soil lies a county called Norfolk. It's Ontario's south coast, you know, and it's surely not remote. If you pass through or spend a day or decide to call it home, you'll see why we love it here and are proud to call it our own. Norfolk, Norfolk, a southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger along. Take in the small town atmosphere, be amazed at all that we grow. Like our kids that go and see the world and can't wait to return home. Drop a line in a placid lake or stroll along the shore. Take a tour on a peaceful country road and bound to be back for more. Of Norfolk, Norfolk, my southern county home. Norfolk, Norfolk, we know you can't go wrong with the friendly folk of Norfolk. You won't be a stranger along. With hard
Wednesday?
Maybe Wednesday, council asked for what the costs were for the Robinson admin building and the Gab admin building. So the sheet that sideways that shows you what the costs of the two the lease for the two buildings. I know my mouth isn't working this morning. Lease for the two buildings. And that's just an FYI.
That's what it is. Anything else?
And I will say that the reason why we pay property taxes on the Gilbertson building and not on the RAB building is because for the Gilbertson building, if we pay the taxes, we can include that in our administration costs and we get subsidy for it.
We get a subsidy. Thank you very much for this information.
And the other piece of paper is an email from the chief librarian, the CEO for the library. And I'm not going to read it. I think council can have a look at that. But that's the reductions that council had asked them to consider, and she's giving us those. And we'll make the appropriate adjustments on their budget.
Thank you. And obviously, someone has inquired, and certainly I emailed on Tuesday, Heather, as to whether it would eliminate the position. So the response, and I'm just reading through it, is basically they will find